Okay, just want to get started. Again, today's topic is on events, and we have Gordon with us, which we kind of consider the king of events. Gordon's really, really good at picking events, being able to get into them, choosing which ones will be profitable, and thought it'd be a great idea to have Gordon here and talk about that specifically. And um, we'll just hop right into it. Lyle, do you have anything you want to say before we?
I'll jump in as I see a need.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and I'll kind of keep some event picks going while Gordon starts. Go ahead, Gordon.
It seems like, hi everybody, this is Gordon. Um, Seems like the number one question I generally get is how do I find events? When people call up and they end up buying equipment, that's their next follow up question. Events are fairly easy to get. For instance, here in Salt Lake City, the Board of Health keeps tabs on, they call them mass gathering events, and they categorize them by the size, clear down from 0 to 500 people, 500 to 1,000 people, and then the numbers just get bigger. For instance, from 5,000 to 10,000, and then it jumps from 10,000 to 20. And on that list, not only does it say what the event is, but they also have contact information and the time of the event during the year, and that's probably my number one source for finding new and upcoming events or just events in general. If I want to know how big they are, and I can kind of pick and choose. Another route that I go to find events is through the local chamber of commerce, and they generally, each city will have an event schedule, and these are really easy to find through the web. The Board of Health here isn't so easy. They actually charge you for that list, and I can go in there right now and buy all of 2012's events that happen through the year. Chamber of Commerce, you can go online and you can pretty much look at all the up and coming events this year, and then keep tabs as the season goes on if more events are added. Um, and then the next way I find out about events is when I'm at the event, I'm quick to make friends with the people that I'm set up by. And I find out a lot of these people have been doing events for many years, and I'm like, where are you going next, and is it good, and I learn about lots of events that are productive and profitable that way. And I also learn about events where they say they'll never go back. It's not worth doing. Um, the uh, the next question would be, once I've learned or have a list of events, how do I go about approaching them? That's fairly simple. Some of them want to be contacted, some want to be emailed, and some of them are just going to say fill out an application online. You never really do get to speak with them. Um, I I not only try to speak with them, but I also try to follow up with an email. And if it's an application, then I just fill out the application. But I'm always quick to put in pictures of the equipment, if it's a cart or a kiosk or a building. And what I've learned is that the snowy look is a huge attraction for the people putting on the events. It is not just another easy up tent. It actually makes their event look richer and nicer, and and I don't know, well done. Um, and I in the very beginning of Snowy, it kind of started out with easy up tents, and of course it evolved. There were many events I couldn't get into. I was competing with other easy up tent vendors. And then as soon as I started to come out with a look, it gave me an edge to surpass anyone with the easy up tents or, you know, the backyard setup. But I generally always will try to speak with the event coordinator and fill out their application and always send pictures. And if there's a spot, I'll put in some of the best events I've done, especially if the events are commission based. I'll let them know according to the size of their event, other ones that are similar in the dollar amount I make, and that's very, very helpful.
So there's some, I just want to cop in here. There's some like that I've done online where basically you pay to apply. Like you fill out an application and I'll say, hey, your entry fee is such and such, you know, which can kind of put you on edge. It's like, man, if I don't even get in, I'm paying to apply. But I think if you don't get in the event, you get that money refunded. But how do you feel about those situations?
Aaron, having a real hard time understanding you.
Here, I'll explain it for them. Some of the events, there's an application fee, and that fee can be anywhere from $30 to $50. And that's a lot of money because there's the risk that you may not get in and that money's gone. When it boils down to that, generally those are pretty amazing events. They're going through hundreds of applications. To me, it's always worth the $50. And I know with the Snowy look, my chances of getting in are great. So I always, when there's a fee, I know that it's a big deal. They want professional looking booths. They're trying to weed out people that are nervous about spending the $50 to simplify their task of finding people to be in their event. I always spend the money. Another thing when filling out applications, some events take a commission. I never do events if they're over 35%, and if I'm going to pay 35%, I'm generally selling a small snow cone, an 8-ounce snow cone for $3 or $4, and then the prices go up from there according to the size. But 35%, most of them, the big ones, are in that category. There are some art festivals that I do that not only charge you a percent, but they also charge you a fee up front. They know the quantity of people. They generally have a kids area. For instance, Park City Arts Festival, they charge $1,200 for a 3-day event per location. I always purchase 2 locations. They have somewhere, if I remember right, about 90,000 people walk through in that 3-day window, and we go like gangbusters all day long. We sell a small 8-ounce snow cone for $3, for $4, and a large for $5, and it's amazing. It was scary when I first did it because it was a lot of money, but you make that back very quickly.
Like one thing that comes to my mind too is, sorry, I'm getting closer here so you can hear me. Is a lot of this comes from experience, which is obviously why we wanted you here and to be able to share that. So people, they don't know whether their events are going to be good or not, and you've obviously had your trial and error where you showed up and had events that didn't do much, and you had events that were jamming. And some of those you just have to go and attend and see how they work out. My question is, do you have any way of like kind of gauging that, any kind of telltale signs? I know you kind of approached that a little bit, but anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, most of these events do have a web page, and they're shooting pictures of the event, the crowd, talks about some of the activities. Um, and some of those can be deceiving. For instance, this year, and I've done this Cinco de Mayo event. Man, I've done it for I don't know 12 years, and I've slowly watched the event become smaller and smaller and smaller, and other Cinco de Mayo events become bigger and bigger. Of course, we do multiple events on that day in the different cities here in Utah. Um, but it generally, I can tell if an event's good by photographs, by the mass gathering permit that the Board of Health provides me that tells them the quantity of people that attend it. Generally, the events will also tell you the crowd, the quantity. Um, is that kind of what you were?
Yeah, exactly. And
And a lot of it. I mean, every year I try to pick up new events, and of course it's always a little risky, but it any time an event can last all day long, and you can look at the schedule of stuff. It helps. And I've done events that were flops, and of course I don't go back. But there is some risk involved, and the best part when you get into it, the best part is asking your neighbor people that they're selling items and stuff. What are their best events, and then the conversation, of course, sways to the what are the worst events. So it's once you start to get your feet wet, it gets really easy, and you learn very quickly, and that goes from there.
I'm going to jump in and throw a couple of things in here, Gordon. It's kind of interesting. Your venues and events are a little different than mine. My Board of Health here is oblivious to what's going on. They just show up when there's an event, but they don't know anything about the event at all. But I have found a couple of other things that you don't approach that are really beneficial to us is, well, you mentioned like the Cinco de Mayos. Where do you find those?
I find them through the city's Chamber of Commerce as well as my Board of Health. But for instance, there's a newspaper here called City Weekly. I believe most cities have that newspaper. It's a free newspaper. It's like in every coffee shop. I look in those every week. They come out with a new one, and there's always a section of concerts and festivals and Cinco de Mayo's, on and on and on of things you can do to entertain yourself. But of course, I look through them to be like, man, where's the next big event? And then I start researching it and find the contact information from there as well.
Okay, and I agree with that. For the community festivals, it's a biggie. But the one area that we do really well with is sporting events. And when I say that, clarify, I'm not just going to the weekend soccer games. I'm looking for soccer tournaments, baseball tournaments, lacrosse tournaments. There are tournaments everywhere that are tied to most of the athletic sports. And we're at baseball complexes, we're at soccer fields. You can go out and just type in soccer tournaments in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I am, and I'll have 20 different soccer tournaments pull up. And then you start, like you're talking about, from that evolves, you find other locations, you get talking to other people at the event, and they're doing this other tournament that's just the other side of town that you didn't know about, and it builds on it. So I don't pass on those, or I chase those real heavily, because the percentage that I pay for those type of events typically is only 15 or 20% instead of the 30 or 35 that you sometimes get with the large events. So just another approach to adding on what you've already talked about, Gordon.
Yeah, I do soccer events as well. They're huge. Generally, they're like 3 days long, and you're right, they do take a smaller percentage. And the beauty with that is every hour you've got a new family, new players, new spectators. I mean, they make a ton of money.
Yep. There's a question on the screen. I'm going to jump in here with it, Gordon, that trying to get before the organizer is placing the unit at a food court rather than in the action area. Which do you find to be better?
If the events, usually the events that are big enough to have a food court area and an action area, I'm always there with 2 stands. I find it's almost 6s. In fact, generally they'll only let me in with 1 location, and then they see the volume that I do, and next year I'm quickly asking for 2.
I agree with that. In fact, the picture that's up on the screen right now, you can't tell it from here. If you were to look just to the right, there's one there. There's one that's off to the left, and all the activity is behind the one that you're looking at, the windsock. I'm at the edge. I try to sit between the 2 locations. So as people are going between the food court and the action, I'm right there every time. They're passing me, going both directions. And it's powerful. And
Yeah.
like Jay, you notice the windsock. Man, that thing can be seen from anywhere. Everybody knows where the Snowy building is by the windsocks.
Yes, in fact, the windsock's kind of a funny thing. As I've worked in the stands, I've noticed Snowy becoming a landmark for people to meet at. I'll hear someone on the phone and they'll be like, I'm by Snowy. It's got a big yellow windsock blowing up in the air. And it's like a gathering point. It's a focal point, which is cool.
Yeah, I've watched Zombie Kids before. They throw their arms out like mummies and they just gravitate towards it. So
I wanted to say one more thing. If you know you wanted to get into an event and you didn't, I'm always attending events if I didn't get in or if I'm curious. And at that event, I can educate myself by just being there. But it also gives me the opportunity to talk to the vendors and introduce myself, tell them what I'm doing, and I can learn a lot even if I'm not there selling shaped ice. I can take lots of notes. I mean, events are a big deal. I don't know. I'm not sure of the audience here, but people can. I mean, we're talking. You can make thousands of dollars at the right event in one day. You can pay off a shaver. You can pay off carts. You get into a fair. People pay off their whole building in like a 10-day window at a state fair. It's huge, and it's well worth your time to pay $5 or $10 to get into the event to see if it's worth doing. You make that back in 2 snow cones, It's just one more way to find out about events.
Gordon, are there any certain events you avoid or that you have found are not productive?
That's tricky. For instance, we're in an amphitheater here in Salt Lake, and country music, we kill it. Hard rock bands, it's a beer drinking crowd. So if I know it's a little bit of an alcohol crowd, I may choose not to do it if it's not real kid oriented. There's a place, there's an event here. It happens to be called Brewfest, and it's strictly about different beers, but they've got this huge kids area. Parents can go there and sample beers and set their kids free. I do that event, and I do very, very well. But that's almost like maybe you have to get your feet wet and try it once. But the biggest downfall that hurts Snowy would be the crowd, if it's a drinking crowd or if it's not. Does that help?
That's exactly. I would echo that. That it's our target market. I think you agree with us, Gordon, that our target market is teenagers. I make money on kids, I make money on adults, but teenagers is where the serious money is. You know, they got $20 and they're going to spend it. A little kid's got mom with them and they're going to spend $2 or $3, and they'll always be trying to get the smalls. The parents are always, no, you don't need that big a one.
Right.
Some examples of where I have had very poor success: car shows. Have you ever had a car show that did well, Gordon?
I have a couple car shows and I kill it. I do very, very well. I actually do 2 locations, one in the food court. This car show's a big deal though. We're talking a couple thousand cars and people are out there cooking. And then I happen to have a bus that I take to the car show that they let me set up in the car show, not at the food court. And of course the bus is a really big draw and an attraction. The people come to look at it, and I always just seem to get them and they buy a snow cone. So I've in Utah, the car thing's kind of a big deal. It might be a little different where you're at, but kids and cars here, they're way into it. And there's always a motorcycle part on the car show. And pedal bikes. It's a big deal here in Salt Lake.
Lyle, oh, did we lose Lyle? All right, looks like we lost Lyle. We were getting a bunch of sound and I muted everyone and then unmuted Lyle, and it looks like he may have dropped off. What's that? Nothing. Oh, okay. You know, talking about the teenager thing too, I guess right at the beginning of the teenagers, when I would do arenas, they always have things like junior clubs that are sporting events and stuff like that as well. And so touching on what Gordon was talking about, where you have an event and they have a lot of alcohol, but if there's something that's catering to kids, it's always a sweet wrench that's put into that. So you don't want to totally write them off. And like Gordon said, get your feet wet first, try it out and see, because usually they have something that is geared towards kids as well. Like one of the arenas that I do, they have this junior club, and they actually put me upstairs in the nosebleeds of an arena, Energy Solutions arena, and all those kids are basically they get in for very cheap, and all their parents put a 20 in their pocket for the event, and they like to come back multiple times during it. So anyway, that's a great event as well. We have a question from Paul. I'm new and was wondering what the best temperature for ice is. It's kind of a Lyle question. He has, do you know what that was? Lyle has an answer to that.
Yeah, Lyle could tell you exact. I always look at the ice. I'm not necessarily freezing it at a perfect temperature. I'll take the ice out of the ice chest, and when it starts to glisten, which means it's starting to warm up and melt a little bit, to me that's the easiest ice to work with. It makes snow cones very quickly. It holds the shape of the top of the snow cone. It's not too powdery when you pour the syrup on, and it melts the snow away quickly. And then it's of course not too slushy because it's too or soggy. But I always like pulling ice right out of the freezer. If I know I'm gonna run out of ice, I'll pull a bag out before I run out, and I can watch it start to glisten. When it hits that temperature, that's the moment when I try to use it. But to pull directly out of a freezer, ready to use, Lyle would have to tell you that one.
And I actually came across that. He says it's actually 18 to 22 degrees. And Lyle's back on the phone with us, so I'm going to have to unmute everybody in order to be able to hear him. So let's see how this goes. Okay, Lyle, you're back.
I'm back. I'm ordering a new computer tomorrow. I'm tired of this. Every time we do a webinar, it's the only time it shuts down. I think you've cursed me, Aaron. And you're right, it is 18 to 22 degrees. Actually, you can make them at 7 to 23. I've been playing with that a little bit. But it gives you the best shaved ice. Aaron, can you mute? You're getting a lot of feedback on somebody.
I'm going to go through and just
mute each one individually.
Yeah, if I mute everyone, then I mute you as well. So I'm going to step through this.
No, I'm saying you can't mute each one individually?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So if anybody has
anyway, sorry about my loss there. Gordon, I know I'm going back a little bit. The car shows, it's interesting that you've had good success with them. I've never been able to get one that did well. The only thing we had success with a car show was the Snowy bus one for the custom trophy. The dog shows, animal shows, I've never done well at. But I'm with you. Try it. Go out and try them. Obviously, you've had success with it where I don't. And I think there's some legitimacy to that. There isn't any event I won't try at least once and go out and do it and see if it works. And even though I may have one soccer tournament does well, another one may not. You have to look at the individual tournament and the size and the number of fields and things like that. So I'm with you. Go out, try the events, and see what happens. Gordon, a question: when you approach somebody, do you find it's the best to approach the event coordinator, or do you look for somebody that's over concessions? Who do you typically try to approach?
Generally, I try to approach the event coordinator. Of course, I introduce myself and ask them who would be the best person to speak with about applying for it and learning about it, and it's either them or like a concessions manager or whatever. But I always just try to go to the guy putting it on, the main man.
One of the things you mentioned about the big events versus small events, and it took Snowy a while to get into the system. They weren't interested and wouldn't talk to you. Did you find you spent a lot of time chasing big stuff? Well, let me just rephrase that. If you were starting new, would you smaller events or go?
When I first started, I wanted an event every weekend, and it didn't matter if it was big or little. But what I learned was when I was at some little event, there happened to be a big event going on the other side of town, and pretty soon things evolved to where I no longer was doing the small ones and I was in every big one. It just happens, and it just evolves, and with the Snowy look and everything, it just happens. It's easy. But I still do. I still do some small stuff, but we're talking, for instance, here in Salt Lake, they do a concert every Wednesday night. It's free to the public. When I say small, about 4,000 or 5,000 people show up. It's from 6 o'clock until 10. But in that four-hour window, I have this mass group of people, and there's only a handful of vendors, and I make a lot of money doing it, and it's residual. It's every Wednesday night for all summer long. I'll do that stuff all day long.
And you hit what I wanted, and that is a lot of people just assume chasing the big ones, you'll spend a lot of time. My point is where you started. Start with just get an event. Start with anything, doesn't matter the size, and let it build. Get your name out there. I'm amazed how many small events I go to, and through either another vendor or somebody comes up and goes, wow, this is neat. Can you come do this event for us? And all of a sudden you find out you're getting into a huge event. Chase the little ones. If you go through as many events as you can get, you're going to stumble across the big ones instead of having to chase them as hard. You'll find them. So
I'm glad you brought that up, because I bet I get invited to 3 or 4 new events a year by being at the other events.
Yes, exactly.
New
So
and
it doesn't matter
upcoming.
what it is. Go to it to get your exposure.
Yeah.
Well, we've kind of hit the half-hour mark, but I did want to approach one other thing, Gordon, and that is when you get into an event. Now, some of them you talk about filling out an app. All intents and purposes, a contract.
Right. Did we lose him?
Lyle?
Yeah.
Lyle, did we lose you? Oh, you there?
I'm here. So anyway, Gordon, do you try to do a gentleman's agreement, or do you try to get one in writing?
I never do a gentleman's agreement. Everything's in writing, so it's just clear at the end of the day if I'm paying him a check or if it's a commission. But that it's just how I do it, and it's how everyone does it here. So the gentleman's agreement I'm not real familiar with. I'm filling out.
I just mean they call and say, yeah, we'd love to have you, and then I show up and then I send them a check. There's no paper ever changes hands, and I've got probably 30 or 40 events that are done that way.
That's awesome. That's unreal.
Yeah. So do you have an agreement that you use, or do you always have one that they use, or that's one of theirs?
99% of the time, it's one that they provide. And that question kind of caught me off guard. I probably do 10 events a year that are a gentleman's agreement, but it's like I've established a relationship with them. Every year I know I'm going back there. They call me up. It's all arranged. I know the ins and outs, and I show up and I do it.
Okay, so you do both. But a lot of agreements. I do have a real simple agreement I use. If a place says, we'd like to have you, what kind of agreement do you have? So we've had to provide one.
Yeah.
The web for Aaron to put on, pick up.
Okay. Also, I'm going to open this up to anyone. You can either type in your questions or you can verbally ask them if anybody has any. We covered it all. What is your simple contract on the website? It's not on the website, but Lyle, I'll put up my email and Lyle will put up his. Jay, I think you actually probably have it. You come to every one of these. Lyle would be able to send you that.
Just email me and ask for it. I'll send it to you. Lyle@snowie.com.
And I just put that up on the screen as well.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Any experiences they would like to share? Okay. I think we'll button it up for this week, and
let me ask one quick question for next week.
Okay.
The people that are on, would you rather? We had two different topics that we were looking at for next week. One is
For next week, one is.
Well, we had three.
Well, we had three.
Managing events, managing buildings, or finding and hiring employees.
Lyle,
what would people prefer?
Hold on, Lyle. We're getting you through your phone and through your computer, I believe. So we have one vote for finding and hiring. Lyle, I'm going to unmute you, I believe, on your computer. Go to that and hang up your phone. Are you there, Lyle?
Okay, we're trying it again.
Okay.
Did you unmute me, Aaron?
Yeah, I unmuted you. So ask your question again because we were getting a ton of
Oh, it muted. That's interesting. It muted so I couldn't hear you, but you could hear me. Sorry. Okay. My question was, yeah, would you rather have next week how to manage events, how to manage buildings, or how to find and hire employees and manage employees? And
It looks like people
looks
are
like
saying finding and hiring.
Yeah.
that looks, yeah, seems to be what everybody wants. Okay, then we will work towards that, and then we'll pick up. Jane, I know she put managing buildings. We're going to do all those. Will be the next 3 weeks, most likely, and we'll take the one about the employees seems to be the highest choice, so we'll start with that, and then we'll move into managing events and buildings and stocking and all that kind of stuff. But I'll plan on the employee one for next week.
Cool.
Okay.
All righty. Thank you, everyone. Anyone have any last minute?
Any last questions?
Found out about this.
Yeah, Paul, we apologize for that. We had some technical difficulties and it caused a glitch, and the message was supposed to go out 2 days ago, and we didn't realize it didn't go out till this morning. So we will get that corrected and get it out earlier next week. We should be able to get it out a couple of times beforehand.
Hey, Lyle.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw one more thing in. Another question I get a lot is people are concerned about at these events, is there ice and how are they going to have enough ice? At the real big events, generally there's an ice vendor selling to all the other vendors, just like you're selling shaved ice to the crowd. Ice has always been a simple thing. At least that's how they do it here in Salt Lake. And then of course, the smaller events, I'll use ice chests and have them in my truck and have it available, or supply it on my location. But when you do get in these events, I always ask, is there an ice vendor there? And then I can prearrange ice, and it makes it super easy. You do pay a premium for that ice, but it sure is nice knowing I'm not going to run out. And if it is $9 a bag, I know 3 snow cones pay for it, and I still have the rest of the bag to make money off of. Or a $9 would be an extreme, but anyway.
Yeah, don't you typically find it's like $5, maybe $6?
Yeah, $5 or $6 is pretty standard. But I've done events before, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I knew that guy was. I wish I'd have known they had ice here. After I knocked myself out buying ice, filling coolers, trying to get it to my location, or even having to cart it in because I am going to run out, and the ice supplier guy, because I didn't make arrangements, he can't sell to me, and blah blah blah. It's always a good question to ask. It's nice when you know there's a truck full of ice for you.
The other question goes with that, Gordon. How much ice do you find you need for a typical event, or how do you determine how much ice to use?
Man, that's like a really tricky question. It's almost like I have to do the event once 1 year, and I make really good notes for the next year. I mean, temperature has an effect on it. Are they going to let in other cold desserts? Is there more smoothie guys there this year? Is there another shaved ice competing with me? It varies, but I'm always over prepared because I've ran out of ice, and I know I just cost myself a few $100 because I wasn't smart enough to have enough ice. It's just crazy. I'd rather throw away 10 bags of ice than lose out on $500 that I could have made. And of course, I don't throw it away. When I tear down, I go back and I store it, put it in an ice chest and keep it. But
well, let me throw a couple of numbers in there that might just support a little bit of what you're saying. I have found I take 12 bags. I have the 150 quart coolers will hold 6 22-pound bags. I take 2 of those. That'll keep your ice pretty much all day. Paul, you asked the question, do you need dry ice? I find I don't. On a really hot day, by the end of the day, I'll start getting some melting, but for the most part, that'll hold up pretty well. but you will sell at, if you're doing like an 8, 16, 24 at $2, $3, $4, that one bag, a 22-pound bag of ice will make you $100. So I go in with 12 bags and say, okay, that's going to make me $1,200. The employee knows when they take the first bag of ice out of the second cooler, I now have 5 bags left to get more ice there. So there's a way of watching that and monitoring and have the employee call so you don't run out. So
One more thing that I've done. It seems like most of the events here, I'm getting $3 for an 8-ounce snow cone. If I know I'm running low on ice, the first thing I do is I get rid of the medium and large cup, and I tell people I'm out. It's not worth selling 16 ounces of snow for the extra dollar when I could have made 2 snow cones, the 8-ounce, and got $6. If I know I'm gonna run out or I'm close, I always get rid of medium and large cups. Just say you just tell them you're out, and then you can keep going and making more money.
I'm amazed you get $3 for that small. I'd have
I
get a mass exodus of that.
I'm just gonna be honest with you here. Every event I don't do anything for less than $3.
See, I get rid of the 8-ounce and do the medium, large, and an extra large for $3, $4, and $6.
Yeah.
Especially sporting events, no smalls.
Yeah, no smalls.
Yeah, so Gordon, you're doing 8, 16, and 24 for 3, 4, and 5.
That's the norm. 3, 4, and $5, and it's an 8-ounce, 16-ounce, and a 24-ounce. And of course, when I get to my event, I'm always quick to look at other people's menu and see what I'm competing with. I do know that the smaller events, or some of the events that are free to the public, $3 can be tricky to get out of someone. But when they've paid a fee to get in and they're kind of locked in there, you can get $3, $4, and $5 all day long. In fact, the all-day events, it seems like my best seller is the medium. The second best seller is the large, and then it goes to my small.
And I want to add to that. A lot of that, the price getting to that point too, is kind of dictated by the arena because they don't want you coming in and, well, I guess I'm talking arena where you're talking an event, but arenas dictate my price because I can't come in and undercut their coat. So, the baseball stadium and stuff like that, I'm 350, 450, 550, but I couldn't even choose to go below that regardless. Paul, you asked 22 bag makes how many dollars on average?
I just responded to it, Aaron.
Oh, so on average it's $100. That's kind of a good way to have a backup as a cup count as well. But, you have a cup count, so you're able to gauge the money that it's making and keep the kids honest, etc. And you can also do that with your ice bags as kind of a backup. If you know you're off by a couple $100, you can see how many bags of ice you went through. Have them keep those bags.
Yeah, because kids make mistakes on the cup count sheets and that kind of stuff. The other thing I like is I can call an employee up and just say, how many bags of ice have you gone through? Oh, 4. Okay, I know I've done about $400.
Yeah.
It's a quick, very simple way of giving a rough idea of what our numbers are for the day.
Perfect. All right. Anything else? I think that's, that this kind of took a turn at the end and talked about specifics on events. This might be something we want to talk about a bit about a little more as well on what we do specifically at events, preparing and the challenges that you run into during an event and how do you tackle those. The conversation turned a little bit of a different direction, and I liked it.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think we are going to close this one up. We will see you next week. And one thing that I wanted to touch base with. Yes. Oh, let me touch this question. They're asking if you can view the webinars. Yes, you can go to our blog page. They all have links to the recordings of the webinar. You can go right to our videos page. All of the webinars are there as well. So yes, you can always go back to that. But please also, we talked about getting notified, Paul, like on the email. Our email went out. It ended up going out later than we anticipated. So the one thing that we encourage you guys to do is join our Facebook, like us there, and also on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter, because you'll always, as soon as anything is posted, it hits Twitter the very first. The last thing to go out is an email blast. And if the scheduling doesn't work on that, then there's a choke there. But please go to that. So by the way, so Steve is asking what site. This is snowie.com, SNOWIE.com. And there's up on the top of the link. In fact, instead of me talking about it, I should bring it up here.
I thought it was at the bottom. Man, I typed in on the bottom of the homepage.
The Twitter account is, I believe it is Snowy Shaved Ice. So at Snowy Shaved Ice is our Twitter page. I'm going to verify that real quick while I'm bringing up our website. So if you come here, and again, I always put in a push for people to go to our forum. So let me kind of go through here real quick. So our media page, we have our photos. It's a photo gallery here. If you need any photos as well, you can always email Lyle and myself. And I put those emails up earlier, but if you on the recording, you can't see those, so I'll say them again. It's Aaron, AARON, at snowie.com, and Lyle, LYLE, at snowie.com. You can go to the video gallery under media, and like here's all of our webinars. So 6.5, there's some other videos that we put in. Anyway, you can go through here, but there's our one. We actually had a glitch with our second one, so don't be surprised if you don't find two. And today's will be up fairly quickly. And then also on our blog, we have these entries. So this one's announcing today's. This is the recording for last week's. This is the announcement for last week's. And anyway, so you can go in. So if I click on this blog entry, right here is a direct YouTube link. So you can just watch that webinar there. And I wanted to verify. Let me get this real quick. Actually, so here's so Snowy Shaved Ice on Facebook. Let's see here. So it is Snowy Shaved Ice. There's actually a user called Snowy Ice, but go to the company page, which is Snowy Shaved Ice. And the best way also to here is at Snowy Shaved Ice. So there's our Twitter account. So you can see both of those on the website as well. Sorry about the delay on that. we changed things a few times, and I'm like, man, I'm going to tell people wrong right now. So thanks for your patience and letting me clarify that. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, your website keeps getting better and better. Thank you very much. We have put a lot of work in our new website, and we continue to work on it each and every day. If you even have suggestions there. Oh, and please also, the one thing that I continue to ask people for, and I started going there and then didn't finish, is we have a forum page. Our forum at one point was huge. We're adding content back to it. As some of you may know, we've had we had it where our forum got compromised. And so now we're rebuilding it. We're putting back in old content, but we would love fresh questions. So please create an account on Snowy's website and go in and contribute on the forum. Ask questions. There's even under general questions, we even have webinar content and topics. please come in here and tell us what you would like to hear, what you would like us to talk about during these webinars, and keep the activity going. Share on this page what you do in certain scenarios. Like for instance, pop rocks. One of the things that I do now, I love selling pop rocks as an add-on, and that came from one of our forum users. They said, "Man, we started adding pop rocks to the top of our shaved ice, and kids just they love it. Even adults love it." And so it was one thing that I took and I started implementing right away. I loved the concept, and that came right through the forum. So please go out there, contribute, and ask questions there, and give your comments, and you guys answer one another. That's one of my favorite things with the forum, is it's not just us, it's people out there sharing ideas back and forth, even without us being right in the middle. And we love to use those. We love to comment.
Be your own boss.
Alrighty. Anybody have? We're right here at the end. If anyone has any questions, go ahead. But I think we're going to draw this to a close. We have another fan of pop rocks. Thanks, Jay. Okay. We'll catch you guys next week. Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.